Sometimes you just want to lift something insanely heavy, and you are never going to find an exercise where you can lift more weight than you can with the rack pull. So what is the rack pull? Essentially, think of it as a barbell deadlift, except we're gonna cut some of the range of motion, and no, cutting that range of motion is not a bad thing because we're using the rack pull slightly differently. Because we're using a smaller range of motion and we don't have to deadlift that bar off the ground, we're gonna be able to load up more weight. So this becomes an exercise where you can expose yourself to an incredibly heavy weight that you might not be able to barbell deadlift. And eventually it's gonna help translate if we keep training our standard barbell deadlifts to a stronger barbell deadlift. Two other things happen when we do the rack pull. One, we get to really focus on the finish of hip extension. So hip extension is the idea of squeezing our glutes and driving our hips through. That is one of the most athletic ideas out there. It's going to make you a better jumper. It's going to make you a better sprinter. It's going to make you better at all kinds of athletic things. And so working that with a heavy weight and learning how to really squeeze our glutes with an awesomely heavy load is eventually going to help you become a better athlete. The other thing we get to really train with the rack pull, we're gonna train our mid-back muscles a lot more than we may think because we have a barbell, and as we stand up with that barbell, we're gonna have to squeeze our shoulder blades together as much as we can. If not, that weight is not gonna let us fully stand up. In addition to that, we get a whole ton of core benefit. Your core has to be involved anytime you deadlift, and our grip gets a very nice challenge because we're lifting that heavy weight and we've got to really tighten up our hands around the bar. And the last thing we get to do when we do the rack pull is we get to explore our barbell deadlift a little bit more. We get to make sure that we can create tension in different portions of the range of motion. When we do a standard barbell deadlift, you're gonna have to create a lot of tension in that bottom position. And as we pull up, we should maintain tension, but we don't really get to focus on pulling from the different points. We can use a little bit of the momentum we create at the start of the deadlift to help us finish each deadlift rep. But with the rack pull, we can change the height at which we're doing the rack pull, and just about any height has some virtue, even if it's a very small range of motion. And that gives us a chance to make sure that we can initiate our pull from a variety of different angles. That's a very real world idea with a lot of carryover. And again, when we can do that, if we can initiate that pull with a heavy load and we understand how to create tension throughout the different portions of the range of motion of the deadlift, our barbell deadlift is gonna be that much stronger. So what are we training in terms of muscles when we train the rack pull? Essentially, you are training everything you train with the barbell deadlift. So that means every muscle in your body, especially as we go heavier, is going to be involved in picking that weight up. Specifically, we're looking at a couple muscle groups that have to handle the brunt of the load. That's going to include your glutes and hamstrings, driving us into that hip extension. Your mid-back muscles and your lats are going to get a lot more work than you think as we pull that bar back. And your grip strength is going to get a huge challenge simply because we have to really hold onto that weight for the entire time. Your abs and lower back muscles are also going to get a lot of work. There's a lot of postural work that happens to protect our spine on any deadlift, and definitely when we start to add weight with the rack pull, that's going to happen on the rack pull. Now, who is the rack pull best for? If you are a power lifter and you're trying to make your barbell deadlift better, then the rack pull can be a weapon to help you do that, and again, to help you understand the tension you're creating at different points in the deadlift. If you're somebody who doesn't necessarily have the hip range of motion to hit the barbell deadlift, then the rack pull can also be a weapon for you because we're not necessarily picking up from the ground. We can find a point on the rack where we can pick up from, and we can still create that glute squeeze and still get that hamstring squeeze. So that's another person who can benefit from the rack pull. But this is not a lift that everybody has to do. It's mainly for power lifters and anybody who really wants to make their barbell deadlift better. So how do we set up for the rack pull? The big thing to figure out is the ideal height for you. Now, as I've said, we can do this lift from multiple heights. So you can do it from anywhere from right above your thighs, and all we're doing is getting that really quick glute finish, or we can do this from right below the knees. A really good starting point, if you've never done rack pulls before and you're trying to feel this out, is going to be right below your knees. If we set the bar right below our knees, then we're gonna get a nice good range of motion. Hamstrings and glutes are gonna have to activate, but we've still given ourselves a little bit of an edge on the barbell deadlift which is where we're gonna be able to move a little bit more weight. And remember, this whole lift is all about giving yourself a little bit of a more advantageous pickup angle than you would have on the barbell deadlift. Once you've chosen your height for the rack pull, this lift becomes exactly like the barbell deadlift. All we've done is change where we're picking the weight up from, but we still have to follow all of our good mechanics from the deadlift in order to hit our reps. So that means we're gonna get our shins up nice and close to the bar. The bar is just a little bit higher. You're thinking about our feet about shoulder width apart. We wanna have a nice, comfortable stance. And then from there, I'm gonna lower my body down to the bar with control. So I wanna think about pushing my butt back as I'm lowering. And then I'm gonna grip the bar. You're going heavy on this lift, so you have a couple options. You can use a standard grip if you want with your thumb on the outside. That'll get you to a decent weight, but at some point you may want to go to what's called a hook grip, where our thumb is on the inside and we wrap our other fingers around the outside, or you may want to use wraps. The one option I would stay away from is the mixed grip. And that's because we're going incredibly heavy on this lift, and not having a nice symmetrical way to pick up the bar does enhance a little bit of our chance of twisting our back or something like that. So I would just stay away from the mixed grip when you're doing rack pulls. My hands are about shoulder width apart. Once I'm in that position, I've got a lot of tension through my glutes and hamstrings. I'm trying to keep those nice and tight, almost drive my butt down. Then I'm gonna turn the pits of my elbows forward and squeeze my shoulder blades just a little bit. Now I've created a lot of tension through my mid-back. I'm gonna tighten up my abs. Look about 2 feet in front of me, so I'm trying to keep a nice neutral neck position. And from this position, all I'm gonna do is stand up. Then just like a deadlift, I lower back down to the rack, let it settle for a split second, and then stand up again. You're working with the heavy weight. So you're not necessarily gonna be able to do touch and go reps on this like you might on a deadlift. So think about settling back into the rack after each rep, resetting your tension, and then standing up. And again, you're playing with this from different heights, so you get to create tension from different heights. You get to understand your deadlift that much more. That is your basic execution for the rack pull, and you can get a lot out of it once you master it. This is gonna wind up making your deadlift very strong. Now, because this is an exercise where we can go crazy heavy, in your training, you want to take advantage of that. You don't necessarily need to be doing 8, 10, 12 rep sets, but think of doing 3 to 5 sets of say 3 to 5 reps in each set. That means we're working with that heavy load. We get to really challenge our body and again, expose ourselves to a stimulus that is greater than what we would face when we are just doing standard barbell deadlifts. Because this is that heavy load exercise, we also want to get it out of the way in our training early. So we want to put this at the beginning of your workout. Think of it as either your first or second exercise, and do it before we get into our isolation exercises or our core exercises or anything like that. No matter how you use the rack pull, you're gonna wind up moving an incredibly heavy weight, which is the idea of the move, and that is going to fire up every single muscle in your body in addition to the target muscles, and it's gonna make your deadlift so much stronger. So if you're somebody who's been barbell deadlifting for a while and you need some ways to mix that up, or you just wanna lift something amazingly heavy, then it's time to learn the rack pull. You'll thank me for it later.